Getting old.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Coach.
Yeah. Um, Pleasure to see all you guys here. Thank you. We are entering into our ninth game of the season, and through nine weeks. I've just really been pleased with the way that our guys have been working throughout practice. We talk to our guys all the time about winning during the week. Just having them have the understanding that the habits that get created during practice, the days that they practice, you're doing those repetitions hundreds of times more than you would ever do them in a game. So what happens in the game is just the byproduct of the muscle memory and the mental and physical conditioning that you've exhibited during practice. So all those guys have taken it to heart. I credit Deontay Craig, credit Ethan Hurkett, Y.A. Black as seniors, as guys who set the example and also hold the others accountable to that same example. Because as coaches, it's one thing to say it and put it out there, but I just credit those three guys for really modeling the behavior that we'd like to see, not just from the defensive line, but just from the entire defense. So those guys are doing an outstanding job for me and for us, really. Um, as we get ready, like I said, for our ninth game, an opportunity to earn win number 6. Got a tremendous opponent coming in here in Wisconsin. I think they're coming in with a 5-3 record, and not that we're looking at schedules and who played who and who lost to who, but if you take a look at their 3 losses, Alabama, at USC, and then last week to Penn State, they lost to 3 pretty good football teams. Matter of fact, at one point in time in the second quarter, they were up on SC 21-10. Let's not lose sight of that. So the opponent that's coming in here is one that we're familiar with, one that has championship DNA, and we're excited about the matchup, excited about the opportunity. It's going to be a great night for football in Kinnick Stadium. So with that being said, I'll open it up for any and all questions that you guys have.
All right, first questions, Coach, will be from Scott Docterman.
Kelvin, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Scott.
Good. I'm doing great. I wanted to ask you about Y.A. Black. And in a couple of weeks, there's going to be a lot of people voting all conference, all American teams. And of course, the statistics for the position he plays doesn't always, measure his level of impact in a game. But how does he impact the game for you? And what has been his growth trajectory in the last couple of years?
Okay, well, you're right. What he does doesn't show up a lot on the stat sheet, particularly with the style of defense that we play. But across the conference, we coaches talk. We see each other's tape, and a lot of people see 94 on the field. He's a guy that takes up space, commands double teams, and allows the guys behind him to run free and make tackles, while also making tackles himself. It's not like he doesn't make any plays out there. So, for us defensively, you feel better when he's on the field. He's a guy that's a vocal leader as much as he is a leader by example. He's a guy that can set the front for us defensively, that he's a tremendous communicator. All the little things that you probably don't see because you get blinded by his 6'6", 325-pound frame, but all the little things that a coach wants on the field, he gives that to us. And like I said, you feel good when he's on the field. And as far as all conference things, he's a first team Big Ten player to me. The numbers might not show it, but that's the type of impact that he has for us. And the past 5 years that we've been with him, my grandma used to say the one that's the quietest is the one who's doing the most listening. And early on, the YA's first 2 years, maybe first 3 years here, he was really quiet, but he was listening. He was paying attention. He was soaking up everything, both from on the field and off the field, playbook things. He was doing all those things, and now we're getting a chance to, witness the exuberance and the real personality of a guy who has a grasp of what we're trying to do defensively, and I think is finally comfortable in his own skin from a social aspect as well. So, just really proud of him and his growth and what he's done over the past 5 years here.
Next question is from Chad Leistico.
Hi, good morning, Kelvin. Excuse me.
Yep.
Looks like your path crossed with AJ Blazic at Iowa. He's now their offensive line coach at Wisconsin. Just curious if you see some of his DNA in this offensive line? I know it's a veteran group, and what are the challenges going up against this group this week?
Yeah. So yeah, crossed paths with AJ. I was a freshman on that 2000 team where he was a senior and I was a scout team defensive lineman and he was a starting center. So we locked horns quite a bit. We also crossed paths when he was at Winona State in Winona, Minnesota as the offensive line coach. I was the offensive line coach at Wayne State College in Wayne, Nebraska, and we 50 pointed him a couple of times. I always make sure that he remembers that. But no, really, like the group, AJ's an outstanding coach. What he learned here, just in terms of, from Coach Ferentz, Coach Morgan, in the Joe Moore approach, they're all Wisconsin's always had a good offensive line, at least since, I've been familiar with them. The offensive line's always been the bell cow of the unit. And that's true again this year. They got an outstanding group. And what I see technically, probably a little bit more movement in terms of the knees and the backside elbow and the aiming points. I see those guys are running a little bit more, and I know that's a product of what AJ's done there. So, but like you said, veteran group, 3 of the 5 guys that we played last year are back, and it's going to be a tough battle. This game has always been about the trenches. I think the trophy is appropriate with it being a bull. Because it is a line of scrimmage game. It always has been with Wisconsin, and we're looking forward to the challenge.
Next question is from John Steppe.
Hi, Kelvin. Good to see you. Wanted to ask about Brian Allen. What's kind of stood out to you from him kind of over this last year, and what do you see as kind of the next step for him in his development?
Yeah. Well, Brian has been, obviously a lot of people have talked about him, and I'm just really excited about what he's done this far this year. Just understanding, he has a role for us. Coming in off the bench, off behind Herkett and behind Craig, but he also understands that when he gets in the game, for him it's about production. When we sub those guys, him and Max Llewellyn, we're looking for a spark. We're looking for them to kind of stir the pot a little bit, and they've done an excellent job doing that. I guess the next trajectory for him is just like all guys you notice, whether it be Joe Evans, whether it be Ethan Herkett or Deontay Craig, you notice guys kind of go from that third down pass rush role to the every down player. And that every down player it's a whole nother role. Okay, it's a whole nother role. You go from as a third down guy and having your menu of things that you're going to see and things that you can expect to when you're a starter, you have to be ready for everything. Everything matters, and so that's the next step for Brian is to kind of master that everything matters type mentality, and it can't just be third down every down. It's going to have to be first and second down, and I'm going to have to change some of my techniques and some of the things that I look at in order to get to third down. So that's part of the process. A lot of guys have gone through that process, and Brian's no different. But I'm really pleased with what he's done this year.
Corey Breda.
Good to see you, Kelvin.
Good to see you.
Kind of piggybacking on the question regarding Brian. So he kind of seems like the last young guy to really break through to the rotation. It was kind of a special moment for Kenny Merryweather this past weekend. Can you talk about his development, and is he kind of maybe in line to be that next young pup to kind of break through?
Well, I certainly hope so. Nothing's guaranteed. But the path that Kenny's on right now, I think he understands what it takes to play here. And I'm just not talking about from a physical standpoint. I'm just talking about being a college football player is hard. From the academic requirements, the football requirements, the social requirements, and the distractions that come in that and that nature. You really have to be focused and have your mind in the right place if you're going to be a good college football player. And Kenny's starting to understand that. He's just a redshirt freshman, and quite honestly, he didn't spend a lot of time with us last year as a redshirt because he had some academic things that needed to be tightened up. Understand that academics are going to come before football. So he's still very green, but we're excited about him because he has ability. He's got infectious joy when it comes to practice. He's not a guy that I'm having to pull something out of. He's not a guy that's coming in that's really moody. He's really consistent every day with his attitude and his effort, and that's going to expedite his development. His attitude and effort are great when he comes into the building, so that's going to really increase his chances. But right now, it's time for him to learn. It's time for him to learn and watch Herkett. It's time for him to learn and watch Craig, okay, and Brian Allen and Max Llewellyn. And when his numbers call, like it was on last Saturday, you got to be ready to perform. But we're really excited about Kenny, and his development both physically and off the field. And in terms of retention and staying around and all those things, like I'm excited for his future.
Tyler Tashman.
Hi, Kelvin. Hope you're doing well. Just curious, some of the younger, I know you have a fair amount of younger guys in your room, freshmen. Just what have you kind of seen from them behind the scenes and just their development, where that the group, but behind the guys that we see on Saturday are at right now.
Are you talking about the class that just came in, or are you talking about guys that are like kind of in the middle of that?
Yeah, like freshmen like Chima and stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, all those guys. So talk about Chima Chineke, Joseph Anderson, Drew Campbell, Devin Kennedy, Trent Cake Rice, Ethan Agakakan, like all those young freshman guys that we have that came out are all doing an outstanding job. I love their enthusiasm. I love the way that they take coaching, not just from me, but from the older guys. And if the older guys are giving you a hard time, but if the older guys are paying attention to you, that's a good thing because that means that they see something too. And I always ask the freshmen, if you could go back to high school football, what would it be like? And they all say, Coach, I would have been dominant. I would have been so much better even in the weeks that they were here than from high school, which I think gives you an idea of how big a jump it is. Like it is a huge jump to come from a high school player to a college player, especially in a system like this and the attention to detail that's being that we ask those guys to pay attention to. The game is night and day to them right now, and I'm just really excited with their growth physically in the weight room. I look at Joseph Anderson for one. Joseph Anderson was a tall, still tall, skinny kid. I think he was like 216 pounds when he showed up here in June. He's already up to 232. He's working in the right direction and still keeping that athletic ability. So I'm excited about the future of those guys. We had a little live football with them today. Let them tackle a little bit. So I think the future's bright, man, if we can keep them all here.
Tom Kicker.
Hey, Kelvin, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Wanted to ask you about one of the big questions coming into the season was the depth at D tackle. I wanted to ask you about how you've seen that group develop this season.
The depth is, I think you've seen in the past couple of games, I think Michigan State and Northwestern, the emergence of Will Hubert. He's a guy that Jeff Bowie, Luke Gaffney were all battling for like the fourth defensive tackle spot. And you look at behind Y.A. Graves and then Jeremiah Pittman. So, all three of those guys are still working. I think Will has kind of separated himself a little bit from the other two. Not that the other two have done anything wrong. Just Will's been more consistent. But we're still looking for depth at that spot and that and just more production from that spot because it's so critical to how we play defensively. Those two guys in the middle need to be stout. They need to be smart. They need to be physical. And the more reps that we can get Will, the more reps that we can get Bowie and Gaffney, the better off that we're going to be. But I'm settled on with those four right now. Fortunately, defensively, we haven't taken the snaps that we used to been taking. So, I've been with the 3-man rotation of Pittman, Graves, and Black. We've been good there, but once the numbers start to get up there, Will Hubert was definitely be the next guy in there.
Elliot Clough.
Just realized my mic was on mute. Sorry about that. Hey, Kelvin, good to see you.
Yep.
So you mentioned Jeff Bowie in there. I know he's dealt with some injuries and inability to stay on the field, but also Will Hubert. I know it kind of seems like everything you just said confirmed it, but solidified that spot in there. But how's Jeff doing? I know he got hurt again at the beginning of the season too. And how is he doing in terms of moving forward and staying healthy?
Yeah, well, we talk about in the defensive line room, your number one ability being availability. You have to be available in order to be evaluated. You have to be available in order to develop your game. And unfortunately for Jeff, and it's no fault of his own, but that's just the injury bug has been around him, that's made him miss a considerable amount of time. Even right, we were 2 weeks into camp and things were going good, and we had another injury that was another 6 week setback. So it's kind of hard to gain traction. But the one thing I tell you about Jeff though is his attitude and his effort have been outstanding. Whether he's played, whether he's dressed or made the trip or not, he's come in with a business-like approach, again, trying to help the young guys. And I think that even though he's hasn't been available as much time as the other guys, you can really get a good sense um, about the character of a kid, or if his teammates like him by the way his teammates treat him. And even though Jeff, like I said, hasn't played as much as the other guys, he's a guy that has a lot of respect in the room. The guys, enjoy him. They enjoy his comments. They enjoy what he's done, just having him in the room. And so that to me is the ultimate. That's what you want. You want a good teammate. Not everybody's going to be an All-American. Not everybody's going to be all Big Ten. Not everybody's going to play. Okay. But, the work that you do, regardless if you play 100 snaps or no snaps, your teammates notice that. Okay. That's the standard that we talk about. And Jeff's upholding that standard.
We'll go 4 more questions, Kelvin. First one is Chad Leistico.
Hey, Kelvin, just circling back to kind of your rotation and snap counts. That's something I count or go back, look through every week is the snap counts. And it's amazing how you distribute them like pretty evenly. It seems like you do a really good job rotating 7 and somehow limiting the D tackle snap counts. But I'm curious, how do you meditate or think about it going in exactly what you want, or is it a game feel type of thing? I'm just curious your process, because it seems like every week you look at the snap counts, it's like, okay, like there's 34 for Craig, 30, 27 Llewellyn, like it's really evenly distributed.
Well, Chad, don't forget that I'm a math major now, so I pay attention to numbers but that's not the reason why. It's really it's based off the rotation in practice. I mean, you guys are unfortunate enough to see us practice, but we have different periods. It would be third down period, team periods, short yardage periods, red zone periods, and I try to mix and match that rotation based off of what I'm thinking of in the game. Um, I don't do, like, I talk to other guys about it. There's some guys that like to rotate based off of field zone. And what I mean by that is, like, these guys are going to go in if the ball's from the -25 to the goal line. These guys are going to be in from the 25 to midfield. I don't do it that way. It's basically by series. And the magic number for us as a defensive line for a series is 3. We want 3 and out. Go out there and give me 3 good plays. And if you're out there for 6 or 9, okay, you're not doing your job. Okay, you want to make sure you get in, go hard, and get out. So, fortunately enough for us, we've had some success defensively. Minus a couple of games, but guys have been able to get in there, spend short time on the field, try to be as productive as they can be, and then get off.
John Steppe.
You were mentioning earlier with the rotations with D tackle and being on the field less, impacting that. How much just in general has it helped you guys when offenses have been able to sustain more drives and you haven't been on the field quite as long as you were last year?
From a conditioning standpoint, that's great. I mean, the more time you can spend on the sideline, the better it's going to be in terms of the wear and tear for your defense, especially over the course of a season. Like, the cumulative effects for snaps over the course of a season is not good for defense. That's like tread on a tire. But with that being said, just because you're playing less snaps, if you're giving up touchdowns when the snaps that you are playing, that's not good either. So, we talk to our guys about quality reps. We talk to our guys about, even in practice, quality reps, short reps. But when you're out there, you got to make sure you're making it count. But definitely you have a fresher body out there. You have a fresher body out there in the fourth quarter, a fresher body out there in the second half than you would if you were playing, 70, 80 snaps a game, which we haven't gotten up into that. Maybe I think once this year.
Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron is having his best season at Iowa so far. Why do you feel like that is, and how would you just evaluate what he's done this season?
Well, number one, it's good to play beside Y.A. Black. Let's get that. It's good to play beside that guy because he's going to take 2, if not 3. So you have to make sure that you win your one-on-one battle. And that's not to take anything away from Aaron, because Aaron comes to practice every day, works his butt off. He's got tremendous energy, really quick, and he's really got a good understanding of football. But in terms of the line, it's good to play beside a guy that's taking two all the time. And Aaron he's been a benefactor of that. And next year, if we're lucky enough to get Aaron Graves back, he's going to be that guy. And that's how things change. So happy for him, happy for his success, and again, he's another guy that you love to have on the field. But he's got a lot more he can give to.
Final question, Scott Docterman.
I wanted to ask about your, I don't know if you call it NASCAR package. I think that's just something we've given it to, but 5, 6 years, because I think the Giants did it, but like 5 or 6 years ago, you had 4 guys who were still in the NFL.
Yes,
And
yes.
they were really good. And you've kind of developed that and you still have that. How effective is it for you? And was it an automatic that you wanted to go with 4 DNs in that 3rd and long package to kind of rush the quarterback?
Yeah, that's a good question. We talk about chasers. Guys that have the ability to chase. And Coach Parker said, we're not looking for chasers, we're looking for catchers, right? Everybody can chase, but only few can catch. And so when those 4 guys go on the field, the idea is that they're going to catch. The way that we coach the defensive line here, we don't talk about tackles and ends and edges and all the other things that have become, common nomenclature in football right now. Like we coach defensive linemen. So if you play a 5 technique, which is a guy who lines up outside the tackle, then you're also going to play 3 technique, who lines up on the guard. You're also going to play 1 technique that lines up on the center. You're going to understand and be able to play all 4, or else you're not going to be able to play as much as you think you are. And credit to those 4 guys, those 4 ends that are on the field. 1, they're out there because they're catchers, not chasers. But 2, they all have to understand all 4 spots, because they may go on the field and they may be in a pass rush mode, and we may see something defensively. Higgins may see something offensively where now they're going to run the ball on 3rd down, and they have to get down and play the run according to the game plan. Okay, so you just can't be a guy that says, okay, I'm a defensive end or I'm an edge guy, and when I slide you inside, you don't know how to play. If that were the case, I wouldn't play those 4 guys. So the bigger credit is those guys, the challenge, the undertaking of understanding our defense at all 4 spots. They've all demonstrated that. That's why they're in that role. And then the physical part too, of them being, guys that are able to run and rush the quarterback. That's why they get, those opportunities, and the incentive of being good on 1st and 2nd down, so that we can create a 3rd and long, get those 4 guys on the field. That's a pretty good carrot to dangle in front of them too. And that's another way, that's another way, Chad, going back to your question, how we can limit the snaps of those defensive tackles, is if we can get into a 3rd and long, we can get YA and Aaron off the field and have a chance to get Max and Brian on the field. And I just think as you continue to, whether you want to call it breadcrumb or like just be selective with the reps those guys get enough reps. Hopefully that helps with their development, ultimately their retention, and then we keep the thing rolling for the years to come.
All right, perfect. Appreciate your time this morning, Kelvin.
All right. One more thing before you guys go. We got in the defensive line room, we got all 21 players, the 21 guys that are in there, they're all registered to vote, and we're going to have them all vote before Big Tuesday next week. That's the goal this week, is to get that done for all those guys. So it's not just football in the D-line room.
All right.